Good afternoon, Meg. How are you today?
Mel, my friend, I'm good. I'm good.
Fantastic. So excited to see you. It's been a while since you've been back in Chicago. How are your travels going?
I mean, I'm rolling with it. I'm rolling with it. I did have a good visit, an extended visit in Chicago this summer and really in the Midwest overall. And now I've headed east and I'm back in I guess the southern Midwest in Oklahoma City for a while. And I'm happy to be here and develop a bit of a routine and maybe do some kindnesses to my body and my life by being in one place for more than a second. But
Well,
life is good.
good. Fantastic. Well, first and foremost, thank you for making the time to be with us today and to be featured on my Women in Tech and Their Money Stories series. We're going into our second year, and I'm really excited to expand a little bit in the category of women in tech because, as our audience may or may not know, Meg's real background is in the insurance industry. But when we spoke recently, you mentioned how you have a new focus, if you will, and I was really excited to promote that. So before we get into that, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Oh my gosh, where do we begin? You summed it up. To be honest, much of my career was, I would say, very traditional. I started working in insurance as an intern in college, and opportunities presented right in the industry to join at a very entry level with an insurance company in rural Ohio. I didn't realize at the time, but it was a company with a really strong training program and also a really strong reputation. And it opened up the next door for me and the next door for me. And I worked my way around on the insurance company side, did underwriting and leadership roles for them, and then went and became an insurance agency working for a couple different independent insurance agents in the Chicago area. As you well know, life is happening while our careers are developing, and sometimes that experience and expertise comes with age. But I think it's an important lesson to remember no matter where you are in your life is that you're making personal choices while you're putting your career together as well. And it was really a personal decision 5 years ago to leave my last corporate role. I was feeling burnout. We didn't have that label for it then, but looking back and knowing what I know now about burnout and how it shows up for many professional women in particular, that's exactly what was going on. And I was fortunate, largely because of some of the financial decisions I made leading up to that point, that I could take some time away. And I ended up doing that for about a year. That's when I met you, when you were planted in my life. And I believe there's a reason that you were one of my earliest connections and later friends during that chapter of my story. And after that year of discovery and exploration, I really decided that conventional employment, traditional employment was not for me.
Not
And
for me
so
either. Not for me
yeah,
either.
yeah. And I can't say that it's never for me, but in this season of my life, this is where I am. And 4 years ago, this past July, I launched Adjunct Advisors LLC, which is a values-based insurance consulting firm. And I work with individuals and organizations who have a focus on culture and alignment of their values with employees and clients who also share similar values. And the connection to technology is that technology is all over insurance right now. I don't know if we realize it as consumers and buyers of insurance, but there's an awful lot of technology that's fueling a lot of the processes and the decisions, frankly, that are being made in the insurance community. And I've really carved out a niche with my clients, helping executive leadership teams to facilitate their strategic planning sessions. And many of them are focused on technology and how that fits in these organizations. And some of them are technology companies as well. So I'm really flexing new muscles, but also really using the ones that I've had my whole career, which is a cool moment for me as a professional.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things you and I spoke about in the past is that training and education that we did receive during our corporate time gave us the springboard to go off on our own and to take that skill set that we learned in selling, whether it was mutual funds or in your case, property and casualty policies,
Yeah.
to then offer that advice and consultancy to other companies. So I think it's fantastic that you were able to make that happen. So congratulations on celebrating 5 years. Doesn't that
Yeah.
feel amazing?
It's surreal. I mean, let's not overlook the fact that we had a couple years of a pandemic. I don't know if you recall. I mean, there was more than one time in those 2 years, and less today, but I think anyone that's ever bet solely on themselves and invested a lot for future success that is uncertain. There were some days where I wondered if I was on the right path. And I share that because I think I don't want to say it's normal, but I don't think we talk enough about the hard days in entrepreneurship. It's very easy to celebrate the highs and to sort of grieve the lows in private. And I definitely don't want to be a wet blanket on the folks in my world, but I also want folks to know it's not an easy path, and it's not a straight line, and there is no guarantee that you'll leave your 6-figure corporate job on a Monday and by Friday you're going to be flush with cash. I mean, it's full of lots of uncertainty, but also for me, an alignment that I was just never able to find in the traditional corporate world between what I'm naturally good at, what I enjoy doing, and how I make a living. And that's the part of it that I really didn't understand when I took the leap. And that's only learning that has come into focus in the last year or so, I would say.
Yeah. Well, and I do think the beautiful thing about being an entrepreneur is that it's always changing, right? You can always put on a new stripe, switch gears. To your point, I mean, I remember some of the things that I did in my first couple of years just to pay the bills and to eat, and to your point, it's not for everyone. I feel like I say this on every one of these
Yeah.
interviews, but
Yeah.
it's a roller coaster. It's a rough ride, but if you can get to the 5-year mark, you have a really good shot of making it. So
Yeah. Or you learn a lot about yourself along the way and you continue down a different path, right? And there's no shame and no judgment. I think there's a lot of pressure around the idea of failure, and the way I've tried because it's not easy some days, but to really embrace the uncertainty is to know that even if this didn't work out, I still have a really cool story to tell in my next role, and some skills and learning on my resume now that I never would have been able to get any other way. And that's kind of the silver lining of all of it, no matter what the future holds. So, but yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. You're catching me on a good day. So
good. I'm happy that worked out. So,
yeah.
I mean, obviously we've talked about a couple of your accomplishments, but is there anything else you wanted to highlight? I mean, 5 years with your company, obviously successful in your corporate time. Is there anything that you really want to highlight for us that you're just super proud of?
Yeah. Again, you're catching me I'm having a moment today, but it's really cool to see that the effort and the time and the commitment and the showing up and the being uncomfortable and the saying what you mean and tweaking it and then saying it again and tweaking it and staying with it is now allowing me to help others create opportunities. So because my network is as strong as it is, and because I have established a reputation as showing up in a certain way with professionalism and with a level of quality and integrity, that people are now asking me, who do you know in the business? And so to be able to help other women on their journey, it's a strange sort of reckoning for me because I've been that woman for the last several years who needed those around me to lift me up. And I still do. I absolutely still do. That never ends, right? But there is a shift that I'm feeling, and it's really cool. And I'm really proud of that. Again, a byproduct that I just didn't, I thought I was always going to be sort of in the struggle, right? That it was always going to be hard. And that it's only been in the last few months that I've really allowed myself to lean into, like, I might actually pull this off. Like, I might actually have a business that is sustainable and provides for me. And that's probably a conversation for another day or my therapist. But there's a lot there, right? This journey forces you to really check in with yourself and your value system and what does success look like? What does failure look like? And be okay with that on the hard days.
Well, and you touched on something that I think I want to highlight as well. And it is about building a quality professional network. Yeah. And that doesn't happen overnight. that takes time. You are planting seeds for years before
Yep.
potentially they will come back and work in your favor somehow. And I do want to highlight that we should always lead with what we can do to help another person first versus pushing our own agenda.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a breath of fresh air in addition to allowing people to see that you are genuine. And that's another piece of advice I would give to anybody who's watching this video as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And to add a little bit more to that, there is a sense, and part of what I do is sales training and coaching. So I can't help myself, but there's often a process that we're told to follow, right? This is the number of days between follow-ups, and this is the way to write the DM. And there's a part of there's not a part of me, it's what I teach is check with yourself. If it's uncomfortable because it's new, that's one thing. If it's uncomfortable because it's really out of alignment with how you want to show up, then don't do it. And I think we don't always give ourselves that second option when it comes to sales and business development and building relationships. And I'm not perfect at it. I completely blew it. Maybe a month ago, I was traveling through Pennsylvania and reached out to an acquaintance who was not any more than an acquaintance and asked for his time. And he gave me the cold shoulder. And I realized I came in at a level 5. We were only really at a level 2. And so it was not timed appropriately. It was not the right ask. He is an individual who gets paid for his time. I do as well. I know the value of my time, and I did not value his time. And so it's a journey, my friend. Like it's a lot of trial and error and hopefully grace on the other end, right? That when you do get it wrong, and the call that I have after you is with a woman who I'm not quite sure what her strategy is to connect with people on LinkedIn, but I did agree to a meeting because she made a pretty compelling case and I want to learn more about her. So there is no magic formula to it, but it is a 100% why I'm able to be here all these years later is because of the people who took time and those who I showed up for too.
absolutely. Well, I'm sure you remember pre-pandemic when we would meet up and work at a Capital One cafe.
Yes.
Brainstorm and share our celebrations and our frustrations, and included with a good old happy hour. Those that time I feel was really worthwhile and something I took away from the beginning of the journey of entrepreneurship is to really have your people and meet with them regularly so you can bond and share.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you'd say that, because the flip side of that is one of the things I've realized over the last several years is that my social network changed pretty dramatically too. And so when I left my last corporate role and I was earning a lot, frankly, I'm single. I don't have children. I had a lot of disposable income. It was nothing to go out for happy hour on Friday and drink an $18 glass of wine and then do it all again on Saturday. And when I had to start really level setting, I'm really truly investing in myself and my future. And what that means is a step to the side financially. And I can't shop frivolously. And now I've entered a season of my life that I don't want to, right? I'm really reevaluating my relationship with things, but it made it really hard to kind of go with the flow and fit in a circle of friends that I realized was on a different path that I was. And the universe delivers, right? You showed up for me and another handful of really quality women who get it. And when the social plan turns into, hey, let's grab a bottle of wine and your blanket and go have a picnic in the park. Like, why weren't we doing that anyway?
Yeah,
but right. I mean, like, I'd much rather do that than be in a loud, cause I'm 100 years old and a curmudgeon, but like, I'd rather be outside and be able to hear what you're saying. And there's so much learning along the right way about yourself and your relationships with other people. And I just don't think there's any way to really anticipate that. You kind of have to sit with it when it happens.
Yeah. And you know what? I mean, I'm going to ask you if you have any other lessons learned because you already shared like 4 of them. But,
yeah.
I think back in the day when we were on this journey together, we were reading all these books, right? Like Grit and this and that. And you can read all the books you want until you're blue in the face. But until you actually do, you don't know. You know what I mean? You don't know all the things that you just mentioned until you go through them yourself. So
Yeah.
there's no
Yeah.
skipping that process.
No, and it doesn't mean that the learning doesn't transfer, right? Like I'm happy in this season of my business for whatever I know the reason. Pandemic was life-changing in a million ways, especially for women, especially for women reevaluating where life and work collide.
Right.
And it's not well, it's messy. And so lots of folks are reaching out to me today wanting to know how to do what I did. And I have no interest in creating a business around it. I thought about it for a second, right? I've got the knowledge, I did the learning, and so maybe that's valuable. I just make sure that I keep a certain amount of time available to answer those questions. And so when they come to me with their great idea, that's what we start with. Like, what is your great idea? What is the problem you're going to solve? And can you put a dollar amount on that? Because if the world's not ready to receive it and pay you for it, maybe it's not time, or maybe the idea needs to be fleshed out a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, we could spend this whole time talking about the lessons, and that's not what we're here to do today.
That's true.
So.
That's true. That's true. Well, I would like to switch gears then and talk a little bit about finances, because obviously part of this journey includes your money. And what have you learned in that capacity as far as on your journey in corporate life, or as an adult, or even as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I remember specifically you had an interview with a mutual friend of ours, Kathleen Brown, and one of the pieces of advice that she shared that I'll echo, but I won't spend a lot of time on because it's been covered, but is the idea that when you do work in corporate America, there is lots of, I'll say, free money available to you. And so to the extent that you're able, take advantage of it, right? The 401k match. I was fortunate to work for 2 different public insurance companies that had stock option programs, and they offered an interest-free loan in order to acquire more stock. And it was done through a payroll deduction. Literally, I didn't even know it was happening. And I was building wealth quietly in the background, which is a really powerful savings tool. And then,
hold on. So does that mean I'm hearing you say pay yourself first?
Yeah. Yeah. And the payroll deduct is a really smart way to do it because you don't even miss it. You don't even miss it. Yeah. And so that really helped to create a nice foundation for me in terms of those years in the corporate world. And there is money to be made in the corporate world. There's experience to be gathered. There's a network of people to be connecting with. And so one of the tricky things today that I see generationally is that I had the benefit of almost 19 years working in that structure before I went out on my own. And I see a bit of an unsettling in the younger generations in the workplace right now, where they want that faster. They want the freedom and flexibility. And I'm certainly not saying that you can't have it. I will say that my journey was much less clumsy because I knew that I had that sort of percolating behind the scenes, and that if I chose to take a year off or 2 or 5 and try this, if the thing completely fell on its face, I was going to be okay in the long run. And that was the peace of mind that I needed in order to take that leap personally. But obviously it's a personal decision. We all come from a very different place in terms of money mindset. And that's something that I've very much had to unravel as well in this season of my life. So there's a lot to it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very true. Very true.
Yeah.
And, to piggyback off of that, twofold is, we went through a pandemic, so that definitely impacted a lot of people's finances, right? And then also now with potentially going into recession in the aftermath of that.
Yeah.
High inflation, high interest rates, and our purchasing power. So it's even more, I would think, of a time to really look at your finances, both personally and if you're thinking about making the leap, because who knows how long it's going to last. Is it going to be quick, done in 2023, or is it going to linger? And, let's keep in mind that it could be another 2008 scenario, right? So,
yeah. Well, you're the pro there. And I would rely on Mel's wisdom, not mine. I'm not, that's not my lane, but I do know that it's a moment in time, right? As a business owner, I've had to raise my prices because I'm feeling it too. And so when you're a new entrepreneur, a new business owner, there's a lot of confusion around what to charge and am I worth it? Am I asking too much? I'm not proven. I don't have the credibility just yet. And so I'm going to charge rock bottom pricing, but I'm not running a nonprofit, right? I need this business to support me and I'm working it full time, right? This is it for me. And so I've had to do a little bit of like taking a deep breath and a swallow and like, okay, I'm going for it and I'm asking for it. And in the insurance industry, I can't speak to others, but the money's available, right? These are for-profit institutions that tend to have budgets for this sort of thing. And so knowing and asking my worth, fortunately, is being received well. But I see a lot of us in the early stages of our business shrinking in order to fit what we think the perception is by other people. And I don't know that that's always necessary or necessary for as long as we do it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good money tip. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
As we wrap up here, where can we find you? And is there anything that you want to share with our audience?
Oh, goodness. LinkedIn. LinkedIn is really where I hang out. I'm Meg McKeen over there. We alluded to it in the beginning. I'm currently a digital nomad and left Chicago in February of 2021. And I've been traveling all around the country and I'm having some fun over on Instagram, sharing those stories, little anecdotes about my travels. Today, there's a video of a squirrel trying to get into my little Airbnb here in Oklahoma City. So feel free to go back and look at that. But no, it's a fun way to keep in touch and keep those in my world in the loop as far as where I am and what's going on. And honestly, I'm starting to book into early 2023 for strategic planning facilitation. So it is not industry specific. I do that across industries, obviously bring insurance expertise when I do it in the insurance industry, but I'm really finding that organizations are ready to be back together in that more strategic way. And also it's a really good chance for organizations to come together. We're all, not all, many of us are working remotely, and that time together, the collaboration and it's really important. And I don't think we should overlook that these days, not just because that's what I do, but because I think it's really important when we talk about building culture.
Yep, I totally agree.
Yeah.
That little technical glitch.
Yeah,
as we talk
all
about
good.
women in tech. Well, and I think you make a really good point too. The pandemic definitely split us all apart, and now trying to figure out how to get us all back together is really instrumental in how we grow from here, go from here, right? So there's probably going to be a big need for what you're offering to companies, and I wish you the best of luck with that.
Thank you, my friend. It's great to see you in this way, and I hope I see you in real life soon.
Absolutely. Me too. Me too. Well, thank you for your time again, Meg McKeen. Feel free to find her on LinkedIn, and I hope you have a great day.